Welcome back to the Heinolf Dialogue 2021, live from Stormen Library, downtown Bude. In today's second session, we will address the challenge of coexistence of ocean industries in the High North. Maybe the Arctic is not all about peace and cooperation, but let's find out. To guide you through this very second session, please welcome the director of the Center for the Ocean and the Arctic, located a bit further up from here in Tromsø, Jan-Gunnar Winther. But first, and again, a short introduction video. And ask yourself, what is your relationship with the ocean?
Welcome to this session on coexistence between ocean industries in the Arctic. Will they bring problems or opportunities? My name is Jan-Gunnar Winther. I'm the director of the Center for the Ocean and the Arctic. The narrative is as follows. The world needs more resources. They need more energy, minerals, transportation, food. And the ocean is part of the answer to these needs. The eyes worldwide are now on the oceans for the ocean services for future. With this, it's fair to think there will be more activity, it will be more packed in the ocean. We have development of existing industries, but also new ones coming in, like offshore wind and seabed minerals. So then, will this take a course towards conflicts and problems? Or can it be an inspiration, an incitament for more cooperation and a win-win track when it comes to ocean industries? Or maybe something in between. To address these very important questions, we have a very competent panel with representatives from aquaculture, fisheries, energy, and also tourism. And the way I want to organize this is that first we will have a small part where we get to know these four, who they are and what they do, what experiences they have. And then we will address the problematic side of things. And then we will end on a happy note and look at the win-win, of course, and then questions and answers at the very end. So we'll set off on this session, and I first call on Bilal Saab, which is located way north of here. And please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jan-Gunnar. My name is Bilal, and I'm the head guide and co-owner of Big Fish Adventure, a fishing camp based off Sørøya in northern Norway. We're a family-owned and run company, started by my grandparents in 1977 and have been doing sport fishing the last 18 years. We're located with our backs to the Barents Sea, and it is by far one of the most fish-rich areas in our part of the world. And our product is simply offering world-class fishing in Arctic waters. Sea fishing tourism has been a rising industry, especially in the north of Norway, the last 20 years. In addition to growing, we now see a shift from quantity to quality, fishing-wise, of course. This means less focus on the amount of fish, more focus on the quality. Is it only me that have a lot of echo?
It's okay. There is some echo, but I think you can continue, please.
Okay. Yeah. When everything is normal at the camp, we have people coming from all over the world to participate in our adventure. And for our customers, the deal breaker for coming to us is to experience healthy fish stocks, a clean environment, and a living community. And we can clearly see a new trend among customers. They care a lot more about the environment than they did before, and they care a lot more about sustainability. And so do we as a business. We make sure that we hold ourselves responsible for our footprint in the nature and that all activities concerning our resources and environment is done sustainable. And it's also very, very important for us that all other activities happening in the sea, in the Arctic, but also all over the world is taken seriously and done as sustainable as possible. Talking as me, a 22-year-old man that has grown up on a small island not far up north, sustainability is not only a word, it's a way of living. Ever since I was a little kid, I've heard stories about monster halibuts cruising under your boat, huge goldfish feeding on sand eels in the surface, and giant trout in lakes on the mountain. Some of those things I've never experienced because we've been too greedy as a race, and our harvesting has been poorly regulated. And other things are going better since we're getting better at harvesting sustainable. For me, the goal isn't to be able to relive this fairy tale when I'm 70, but rather my grandchildren's grandchildren will be able to live this experience and see healthy fish and healthy sea in the world.
Thank you, Bilal. And this sounds very authentic and very in line with nature. We will come back to if there are also issues that are more challenging. But then I'll turn over to Hannah Mary Goodlad. You represent the energy sector. Please, Hannah.
Thank you, Jan-Gunnar. And I'm speaking just now. I don't know if I can hear an echo, so I hope that continues. So, hello everyone, and delighted to be with you virtually. We are where we are in terms of the globe and the global shared pandemic that we're all going through just now. It would have been great to be with you in person, but it's a privilege to be with you virtually as well to talk about this important topic. As you can hear by my accent, I'm not Norwegian. I was born and brought up in the Shetland Islands. So it's an old territory of Norway, I guess, if you go back a fair few hundred years. But I grew up on Shetland, and it's a very special place at 60 degrees north. I grew up on a fish farm. My mum and dad owned a family-run salmon and halibut fish farm. And it was a childhood shaped by the sea and the island community, the way of life, but also the fact that Shetland is an isolated community at 60 degrees north, geographically, politically, and even socially. It's isolated, and that instills a certain sort of character and outlook within the people of the Shetland Islands. A character that is very forward-looking when it comes to business and industry. A character that is innovative when it's looking to new technologies and finding new opportunities for the 24,000 people that live on Shetland. And a character that's welcoming as well. And that is the core of what it means to be a Shetlander, really. And I carry that belief with me wherever I go. But growing up there, being shaped by the sea and living with the Sea, we had three main industries. They were fishing, aquaculture, and oil and gas. And these were industries in equal proportion for Shetland, and it was hard to grow up there without being influenced by these industries. And it was a clear example to me growing up how, when industry is done with responsibility, credibility at its heart, how it can be a benefit to the local community that hosts those industries. We benefited hugely from oil and gas, fishing, from the aquaculture. And as a population, we've really done well out of these three industries. And that inspired me to actually chart my own future within industry as well. I wanted to contribute in a meaningful and positive way, to do things differently. And growing up in Shetland, I cannot underplay how much that chose and influenced my life's choices. So I always, I was always influenced by nature. And I think my mum and dad thought I was going to be a marine scientist at some point. Always took my boat out fishing, collecting stuff from rocks. But always I had stones in my hand. That was my biggest thing, collecting stones from the beaches and anywhere I went, it was this point. So I went to university in Glasgow. I studied geology, and then I continued that down to London, to proteome geoscience. And there was only one company I wanted to work for, and it was at the time. Because they were doing things differently, I could see 8 years ago that they were still a company that was doing things in a credible, different way from the other companies that were around at that time. It may also be the link with Norway and the Shetland heritage that also influenced my decision. I think that is it's no bad thing. But I joined Saab as a geologist, working in the oil and gas industry, exploring the North Sea for acreage and licenses to put into production to keep the lights on. And I'm very proud of that part of my career in oil and gas. Oil and gas and energy elevates people out of poverty. And I think that is a fundamental thing that people in the oil and gas industry need to be proud of, that our industry helps people elevate themselves out of poverty here in the West, but also in the global south as well. But I always wanted to join the industry to make change from within. And I had always wanted to be part of the new energy that was emerging out of Equinor. So I got the opportunity to transition into offshore wind 4 years ago. So I spent some time in operations there, taking on a couple of asset manager roles, one for Highwind Scotland, the first wind farm in the world, and also some of our operations in Germany. So currently, I head up the offshore wind area development in the Baltic Sea. So it's taken me away from the North Sea, but again, it's interaction with some Scandinavian countries as well.
I think I will say thank you to you now, Hannah, so we can move to the juicy stuff a bit more quickly. But what I hear from you and also from Bilal is passion. And a passion as a driver also for selection of job. And I think that's an excellent starting point. Now we will have Jan-Roger Lerbukt, which is now a manager, but used to have his shoes on the deck, so to speak, in fisheries. So please, Jan-Roger.
Thank you, Gunnar. Hope you can hear me well. I'm sitting in Tromsø now. But I was actually born in Hammerfest in Finnmark. So I grew up in Tromsø, and I grew up to be a fisherman. I was actually 10 years old the first time I was at sea with my father, fishing. And everything was new and very exciting to me as a 10-year-old boy. The thing is that I was actually advised against being a fisherman when I was young. To be a fisherman when I grew up was not a thing you wanted to be. All the teachers in school and people around you, grown-ups, thought of the fisherman's industry or the occupation to be a fisherman was not very well seen upon, because it was hard work, it was dangerous work, it was a dirty work, and you were away from your family all the time. This has changed. It's changed a lot. Just during the last 10 years, it's been much more popular to be in this industry than before. It's a high-tech industry. We do a lot of fun stuff like this, and we also try to do our best every day when it comes to environment. We try to do better every day in all the things we do at sea, and we try to do better when it comes to safety, when it comes to the environment, when it comes to pollution, when it comes to everything. So it's a nice way to see how things have changed, and it's still a hard work. It's still a hard job to be out at sea, but it's a free life being out at sea, and it's very much a thing I could recommend to others. I've been at sea, as you were saying. I've been holding every positions on board a fishing vessel except being a cook. I don't cook too good. So now I'm the manager in the office. Another thing we've seen, which we will come back to, of course, is the increased demand for space out at sea when it comes to wind, offshore wind, and when it comes to oil and gas. And we have to find a way to live together for the future and this. But I think we will come back to that.
We will.
So that's a short introduction from me. So yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry for claiming that you had shoes on the deck. It should be boots, of course. But now you wear the shoes in your office. So then we have cleared that one. Okay, last but not least, Anette Davidsen, aquaculture, please.
Thank you, Jan-Gunnar. My name is Anette, and I work as a communication manager in NovaSea. NovaSea is a local farmer, salmon farmer based on Loving, and we have farming facilities and sites all along the coast of Helgeland. Personally, I've always had a strong engagement and interest in issues regarding sustainability, clean ocean, and companies who create local value. Luckily for me, these matters are most important to NovaSea as well. One of the main reasons that NovaSea was established was based on a desire to create more jobs in the local community and to help business that were struggling. All from the start, our vision has been either the chase for the perfect balance or the perfect balance. It reflects upon the challenge to produce food in an open environment in the ocean. Any production that we have results in a footprint, and we also use from an area that is a common property, and which is used by others. All of this comes with a big responsibility for us. I think that the key is to understand our impact, to control it, and to reduce it. And in the same process, we have to have a good dialogue with others, which our activities have an impact on. Norwegian farmed salmon is one of the most sustainable meat to produce and one of the healthiest to eat. We create local value and work for a lot of people, which is not only important for us, but for the local communities and a lot of others. At the same time, the standard of living continues to increase, and the world and the society has a focus on climate, health, and healthy food. These are long-term trends that are also increasing. Then it's our job to tell people that Norwegian farmed salmon is the sustainable choice. We don't belong to the future if we are not sustainable. At the same time, we need to take into account or consideration that our activities don't go at the expense of others. We need to have a mutual respect for each other, communicate and collaborate where we can, so that we both can live well in the same area. The purpose of NovaSea was to create more jobs, not less, and more activity, not less. So thank you, Jan Roger. I'm looking forward to the rest of the talk.
Thank you, Anette, and thank you all for presenting yourself. I thought it was useful for the audience to get a little bit more personal touch to who are speaking and discussing. But now turning to maybe the more problematic stuff. We don't solve any problems, I think, if we are sweeping problems under the carpet. We have to address them, we have to be open about it, we have to also try to, of course, solve them. But I would like now to ask each one of you what you think are the most challenges experience from your sector in comparison with other ocean activities. And I will start with you, Jan Roger. What do you anticipate now and also in the future will be challenging your fishery sector the most?
Thank you, Jan-Gunnar. No, the thing is that, of course, it's ocean space. It's demand for the sea. It's a vast space out there. It's a vast ocean, you always say. But you can't fish everywhere. You have fishing grounds, you have places where the catches are better than other places, and if you have to share, or if you share this with others, we have to respect each other and listen to each other, and how this can be done. In our experience, past experience, it's been said that offshore wind and oil and gas and seismic activities and everything, they're respecting and listening to the fishing industry, but I have to be a little bit critic about that, because they say they will listen, they say they will cooperate, but they only listen and learn and then do as they like. That's the that's the past, at least. So this has to change. So that's a big issue for us, because we can't fish in between the windmills out at sea. That's not possible, and it's not small areas there are taking away from us, more or less. And also the precautionary angle to everything. To you know, when we're fishing, we try to harvest sustainable. We try to have the long-term sustainable fisheries, and you know, the precautionary approach to this is to try to do as less impact as you can. And I'm not sure that oil and gas in the Barents Sea is taking that into account enough, or wind, offshore wind for that account. So I'll stop by that for the moment. Thank you.
It's a good starter on our discussion, and I think it is Hanna's turn now to respond to Jan Roger and give your kind of reflection on what he addressed here. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Jan-Gunnar. Yes, in many ways, I always try and find common ground, and I agree with Jan Roger. The issue is ocean space, but as he eloquently points out, it is a vast ocean out there, and there is enough space, I would argue, if we do it in a planned, respectful and early engagement manner. If we are better at using our space, I believe quite passionately that there is enough space for everyone's need, but perhaps not everyone's greed. And I include all industries in that quote. I want to come back on a couple of points that Jan Roger made about consultation and learning, and listening and learning. I think he, again, common ground, he's correct to say that things have not been done right in the past. There have been instances where industry has ploughed ahead, and it's been our way or the highway, and I think that is wrong, and that cannot be the way that we take this forward, because nobody will succeed and there will be no winners out of that. But I want to give a couple of examples. Pipeline in the Snowbit gas field. The fishermen were not happy with where Equinor was going to be proposing this pipeline back in 2014. And we consulted meaningfully, and I consultation is branded around as a word, but when you have meaningful consultation with stakeholders, it really makes a difference. And we listened to the fishermen and realised that the pipeline placement proposal wasn't correct. So we moved it, and we moved it in order to enable them to continue with their fishing grounds. And that doesn't just span to oil and gas. There are incidences here in the UK in our offshore wind sector as well. High wind, again, the cable route was moved, micro-siting to allow scallop fishing to continue. And then again, the fish stocks that Jan-Gunnar pointed to, we actually do see, there's a couple of papers that I can share later with you, Jan-Gunnar, but we're seeing that the rock dump around the base of offshore wind turbines, actually with given time, you see cultivation of ecosystems at the base, forming an artificial reef almost. And I know that is a sort of a conflicting term within the fishing industry, but there is evidence of that. And we see fish stocks and fishermen or fishers go into these areas specifically to target the base of these offshore wind farms. And on the final point about fishing between the turbines, size matters when it comes to offshore wind. And the turbine sizes are getting bigger, and in terms of heights and also diameter. But in order to make sure that those turbine production is efficient enough, we need to also increase the space between the turbines. So we're talking multiple kilometres now between individual turbines. And that's a change from the wind farms we see in the North Sea today. So the space between is getting larger and is only going to increase. And we need to trial fishing within. I don't think that demersal bottom trawling will ever be able to happen, but let's think about how we can be smart in the pelagic trawls between this 5-10 kilometre space between individual wind turbines, because I believe it is possible. It's not something that is in our minds just now, but technology advances. It's something that needs to become a trial and a way of working.
Okay, before we leave this topic about fisheries versus offshore wind, I would like to have a few more views on that. So you describe the future wind parks with windmills so far apart that you actually can have activity like fisheries in between. So could you give us the kilometers? And also in a wind farm, how would be, you think, that the total area that will be used for windmills, more than this one with the space in between? So we just get an idea, the audience, of what areas are we talking about. And then I will, for both of you, you have a bit, apology if I'm wrong, different version of the history. I think it's more optimistic from Hanna when it comes to past experiences than from Jan-Roger. Would it at all be possible for you to have the same version of the history, or is that a given that it will be different views on that? And how can we use the past to make better in the future? So please make it relatively concise, because we need to take in the two others also. But I think this is such an important topic that we will spend a little bit more time on the fishery wind. So Hanna, first to you, and please, all of you, just join the conversation, so I'm not handing the word all the time from one to one. Please, Hanna.
Yes, so currently we have, within the UK, we have spacing of around about a kilometre, 800 metres a kilometre between the wind turbines. We see that is going to double or treble when it comes to the larger turbines. So we are talking up to 5 kilometres between these turbines. And when you start talking about that sort of level of distance, if you have the right technology in terms of floating or the right sort of stabilizing mechanisms for the turbine in deeper waters, with a bit of innovation, and I have talked to the SFF, Scottish Fishermen's Federation, about this, with a bit of innovation and creative thought, you can start to think about how you can have fishing techniques. Not all techniques of fishing will apply to this, but how you can have certain techniques that could coexist within a wind park site. And indeed, we were going to be running a trial last year at High Wind Scotland in collaboration with some Scottish authorities here on testing fishing, line fishing, trap fishing, and also creel fishing within the Highwind Scotland site. And that is 800 metres to about 1 kilometre between the 5 turbines. So not even the big spaces that we're talking about.
Thank you.
So it is possible.
Thank you.
I believe.
To Jan Roger, the last intervention on this topic.
Yeah, it is possible. Maybe. The thing is that you asked about the history, Jan-Gunnar, and of course you shouldn't look backwards always. You should look forward and try to do things better, as I started with. So as a fisherman, we always try to adopt new technology when it comes out. If your fellow fisherman has a better technology than you, of course you want the same, to have better catches or reduce energy use or whatever you use. And of course there's innovation in wind, offshore wind as well. But my concern is always, you were talking about, Hannah, my way or the highway. Yeah, that's been the past. And everyone's need and everyone's greed, you were also saying. So which one's greed are you talking about? Because we are trying to harvest sustainable fisheries and trying to adopt new technologies to do better every year or every day. If there has to be a coexistence, and of course there has to be a coexistence, the government and wind industry and oil and gas and aquaculture, for that sake, has to listen to the fishermen more than they have done in the past, because it hasn't been like that. The history has shown us that they are doing surveys or investigations or interviewing fishermen and talking to fishermen. But when it comes to business and cash is king, then it's my way or the highway. And they're always using we need new sources for renewable energy. We need this, we need that. And of course, for a fisherman, it's very difficult to stand up against that, because that's a good choice, or a good view for the future, because we do need renewable energy, but we have to do it the right way. So I'm happy to hear that you want to listen to the fishermen more and want to take into account that we do have some needs as well, not only greed. Yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to you more later. Thank you.
Hannah, please.
Very briefly, there is no alternative to listening and respect. That's the principle in which we have to move forward. You say cash is king. Let's not pretend that this is small fishing communities either. The fishing industry is a big, powerful industry in and of itself. I know that from a Shetland perspective. I know that from a Scottish perspective, and Norway is absolutely the same. So these are big economics that we're talking about from energy perspective, but also the fisheries perspective. It is an industry where cash is king in its own right. I will finish with one comment. The biggest threat to the fishing industry is climate change. And I think that in terms of migratory stocks, because of sea level acidification and also water temperature rise, there has to be no sort of credible alternative but to find ways of coexisting and to find new technologies to tackle climate change, because that is the biggest threat to the fishing industry.
Thank you, both of you. And to my big surprise, we didn't solve all the problems today, but I'm very happy that you were so open and specific and on these matters. So that's helpful, and that's a very good attitude to bring us forward. Turning to aquaculture and you, Anette, there has been a lot of complaints about your activity, not yours at NovaSea, but the aquaculture sector. Pollution, diseases, escape of fishing, mixing with the natural ones, and so on. But I would rather ask you, what do you as a sector see as the most challenging issues connected to other activities? And if you can address the perspective that now aquaculture is also migrating more offshore and maybe meeting both the fishermen, as we heard, and the energy sector, Could you give us a few examples or reflections on this?
Yes, of course. And even though I believe that we as a company have a good communication with other industries and that we do a lot of good work to become even more sustainable, there are definitely areas that we see as challenging in the future. One of them is the small amount of space that we have. Norway is one of the biggest aquaculture nations. This is partly due to the unique fjords that create protected areas for setting up simple cage-based facilities for the production of large quantities of fish. And this has been a great advantage for Norway. Today, most of the possible production area have been taken into use, and we constantly see new biological challenges when we increase the production at the existing sites. We want with our projects and in our daily work, we have to contribute to solve these problems at the same time as we contribute to less conflicts with other interests, better escape safety, and less lice pressure. Because of the purpose with these offshore projects is to reduce, not increase the conflicts. And also I would like to mention fish feed. That is one of the biggest input factors that we have as a company that we can change to become even more sustainable. And I think we have to work together with our suppliers and use our purchasing power to buy more feed that is more sustainable and to make a change there. Also, we have to reduce fish mortality, reduce waste from nets and ropes, and become more sustainable. And I think that is going to be good for all of us. And I think it's easier to do it when we have a constant focus on these problems. When we work with it in our daily basis, in our daily work. And then I also think we can get better solutions when we work together with other industries that are affected by our work.
You mentioned the waste. Some call it resources that are not used properly today. Would a 100% use of the biomass, including what today is also the waste part, be a naive ambition, or would it be a stretch that we really could have as a star hanging on the sky? What do you think?
We have it as a star hanging on the wall, so I don't think it's naive to think that we constantly have to work with finding better solutions, both with fish and with other materials that we are using in our daily work. We both use nets and ropes as resources into other industries by making chairs or to recycle it, and we try to find new ways on using things that we no longer have any use for. So I don't think it's naive. It's something we have to do to become even more sustainable in the future. So no, it's not naive, and I think it's a really good way of working to become even more sustainable.
Please, Anna.
Yeah, I'm really curious, Anette, about the sort of multi-use aspects in terms of how the aquaculture industry views perhaps combining ocean space within a wind park, for example, or within a decommissioned oil and gas platform. Have you got any views on that?
I think it's definitely ways we can find ways to work together on it, because as long as we have our spaces, I think that we can use, for example, the energy of a wind offshore platform. And so it's a lot of ways that we can gain from each other by working together and talking together early in the process, and have a good dialogue and finding ways to do that. So I think it's absolutely possible to find good ways to work together here.
Patiently waiting for a long time, Bilal. Now I'm coming to you. You are having the biggest fish in the world. You can offer a product that must be on the top list of any trophy naturalist fisherman. What is challenging your activities as you see it now these days in the area where you are operating?
What's challenging us is at the moment not too much when it comes to the nature, because right now I think that we're doing good when it comes to cultivating the resources that we have and the nature that we have. But the few problems that we have is more of a future problem that we will get if we continue on doing. For example, if we put too many fish farms in too many fjords, we have seen some, call it problems with having fish farms in the fjords where we target halibut, because, obviously the fish will not be as present in that fjord as it used to be. We have some fjords as good examples on that. And of course, if you just grab the mat under all the fish stocks' feet and rip it away, like it would do if we put a wind farm on the main spawning ground for cod, then that would be a problem. And also, if we harvest too hard from areas where the cod grow up, where they feed to get bigger and then go into spawning. So really the whole thing that I'm trying to get is basically everyone needs to, and of course for us as well, if we go into the fjords and fish halibut on the same spots that we always do, and we kill the same halibuts, or you can't kill the same halibut twice obviously, but if you kill halibut from the same spot, too many of them, then you will end up having a problem with not having halibut there. So where I'm trying to get is basically everyone needs to take their responsibility and be able to think together and maybe find solutions where we can, for example, when it comes to the fish farms, maybe closing them up in the long perspective would be better when it comes to waste with feeding and the lice problem, obviously for salmon. And for wind farm, maybe, as you said, as artificial reefs, that would be really good to fish from, probably, for sport fishermen. But that again, maybe it would be a problem for the commercial guys. I don't know. That's not quite my profession. But I think for sport fishermen, fishing-wise, from an artificial reef would be good. And of course, when it comes to the commercial fishermen, me personally, I think that we're starting to get a much better, call it cooperation, with the commercial fishermen, because I think that we're moving in to a new era when it comes to this, call it sea fishing industry in Norway, where everything has a shift towards the green side, where people think more sustainable. The people coming to us, they spend more money on tackle and stuff like that to catch one big fish instead of catching many small ones. So what we end up doing, and also, of course, the catch and release debate that has been going on for the last years has finally people are starting to listen and to see that, okay, catch and release actually works, so that the spawning specimens from each species that we fish gets released back and gets to reproduce, and then it will be more to everyone. So
thank you, Bilal. It's interesting that you mentioned the artificial reef, and it's of course enhancing the biomass production, but it's not in use in Norwegian waters as far as I am aware of. I don't think it's allowed at this point, but it is used other places in the world. We need to move on. I saw a hand, but but maybe you can pick up on that, Anette, in this third sub-session, which is now looking into possibilities for coexistence, collaboration. And I think Bilal made a very good description of that. We are actually, in a way, challenging each other, all of us, because you pointed to all the three others, and that's the reality. But at the same time, we need to get this to work. And now I would like to ask you, and I will start with Anette, so you can also address what you wanted to. What are the tools in our toolbox, the most important ones, that you think we should use to achieve win-wins? Anette, please.
First of all, I just want to say and ensure you that none of us is more interested in keeping the fish in the farms than we are. We have monthly inspections on the cages to check for flaws. We have efficiency feeding to make sure we reduce waste, so it's less hard on the environment around the cage, and we have very little escapes from our fish farms, and we take measures depending on the risk. Oversized measures are also not sustainable. We have to, if we don't have any escapes, and we have to use a lot of time, money, and resources on limiting something that is already low, it's not sustainable that either. Also, we have a lot of surveys regarding the environment around the cage. We have meetings with local fishermen, and we have meetings with local communities to ensure that our activity doesn't doesn't have any negative impact on others. So I think as long as we talk to each other, have meetings, and have a bigger respect for each other, that both of us are going to be here. We need to find a way that make sure that both of us can be here at the same time, and that our activity doesn't harm some others. Then I think we are coming a long way. And I also think that is something that we need to do, and the responsibility of that is lying on us as the biggest company. Because if we don't have the local communities' support in all of this, we can't have the same activity as we have today, and we can't increase our activity if we don't have local support. We depend on the local support, and I think we need to do a lot to keep that and to still have that in the future. So that is definitely one of the most important things for us.
Would you follow me or say I'm right if I'm saying the following? The NovaSea model, which uses money on building society locally, is earning more money because of that than actually spending money. Would you think that's a correct statement?
Yeah, that can be. And as I said in the start, one of the main reasons NovaSea was created as a company was to create more jobs, more local value, more sustainable local societies. So if we don't do that, if we don't, that's the purpose of our society, that and create healthy food for the world. So absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So the obvious follow-up then, I don't regard you to answer that, but why are not more farmers doing exactly this, building strong local communities to earn more money and also build societies? If you don't want to, let's just have it out there in the space. You are not the only one, but you are one out of very few actually that have managed to do so many good things for the local community.
Yes,
okay, so dialogue, but you mentioned dialogue also, and we made a big survey at the Center for the Ocean and the Arctic last year, and dialogue and the soft tool of communication was actually lifted out among the ocean industries as an extremely important tool for improving coexistence. I need to move on. Names of tools, Jan Roger. What are the most important things?
Some tools. Fishing gear is the most important tool. No, a little bit on the serious side. Of course, environmental impact is some of the biggest concerns for the fisheries for the future. But that's not a viable argument to use when you want to take away the fishing grounds from the fishermen. We have a saying in Norway that it's like out of sight, out of mind. I don't know how this translates to English exactly, but the wind industry has been gotten a lot of challenges from wind farms onshore. So why we don't push them out to sea? People can't see them. It's out of sight, out of mind. So let's do it for the fishermen. No. What's most important for us for the future is to sustainability in the long term, to keep the cleanest, coldest, best waters in the world and the Barents Sea still clean. still sustainable stocks to harvest for the future. That's our main goal every day when we go out to sea. We have to harvest sustainable for the future. And we have to share the ocean space, of course, and do more environmental friendly, find new energy sources. But you can't use the environment as a viable argument every time to push fishermen away, because we've been there for thousands of years. Not me, but the fishermen, and we have harvested. And we have to keep that tradition for the future. The coastal tradition, the fishing industry tradition, and we have to find a way to do this together. But then you have to start listening to the fishermen. So that's my tool.
Jan Roger, how do you value the tradition part? I assume that you think it's not valued as much as you want, but how do you put a value on that? Because it obviously has a value. You developed local communities for hundreds of years.
You know, keeping the traditions when it comes to you know, skills, fishermen's skills for where are the fishing grounds, like Bilal is saying. We have to go there to find the biggest halibut or the best cod or stuff like this. So keeping the skills is important, keeping the traditions in that way, and also to teach youngsters, to teach children who grow up now how it was 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. You have to keep up the traditions, and you have to keep that in mind also when you push forward. Even though everything is more innovative now than before, and more technology is used and utilized, we have to keep that tradition in mind, who came before us. So, yeah.
So you are maybe speaking about cultural heritage in a way.
Yeah, it's cultural heritage. Yes, it is for decades long. So, I'm not saying wind or gas or oil or anything or agriculture is going to destroy that, but we have to keep that in mind, that we have to keep the traditional fisheries. Even there's space for all kinds of boats as well, and within the fishing industry, for the smallest vessel 10 meters long up to the big trawlers today, or purseaners. There's room for everybody, and there's a long tradition in that as well in Norway. So,
thank you, Bilal. You are next in line here, second last on what are the tools that you think are the most important to enable us to collaborate more.
I think that if we communicate well, that would be the first step. Like, you can't get anywhere if you're trying to ask someone, or if you're trying to give something that they don't want, basically. So what everyone should do is just clear the lines, find out who wants what, and of course try to meet each other as well as possible. Talking for the sport fishing community and the tourism, especially, then we can educate our customers and also the staff and the people working in tourism and doing sport fishing, and educate them so we harvest even more sustainable than we already do. And the easiest way to do this is obviously becoming better at catch and release, and becoming better at selecting what fish we should take and what fish we shouldn't take.
So when you are taking out customers, you are using the word sustainability quite a lot, I understand. It's not the word fishing all the time, it's also about sustainability.
Yeah, it's always sustainability. When we go out on a guided trip, we always talk about how we go to this shelf today because we already fished the other points earlier in the week, and we already took one fish that was about 1 meter, which is 8 to 10 years old, which has already spawned once, and we wanted to spawn several more times. That's why we kill the smaller halibuts and we don't kill the big ones. And like, every trip is an educational trip for our clients, and that's what we try to do better all the time. So of course everyone should I can only only speak for our firm, but I think that there's a shift in the whole industry right now, where people are taking this really seriously, because people are understanding after many years of trying and failing that if we want the fish to stay here close to shore, we need to take care of it. And that's really everyone's kind of task to keep on doing. Because if we, as I said earlier, if we rip the carpet under the stocks, then you will end up having nothing at all. And that's the same if it is in a fjord, if it's cod going into the fjord and spawning, if it's halibut spawning in the fjord, if it's halibut spawning on a fishing ground where there's turbines and they won't work or they won't spawn there after. Like, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but we need to make sure that it's not going to happen.
I'm challenging you, Bilal. Make a song about the cod and the halibut and sustainability in the future, and be a star as you are also on that scene. Hanna, your turn.
Yeah, it's a big question, and I'm not going to stand here and pretend I have all the answers, but I would boil it down to two tools. I think that number one for me is meaningful consultation, and by that, you know, the Simon and Garfunkel song "Sound of Silence" comes to mind. You know, they have this line there that says, "People hearing without listening," and I think that the listening part, Jan Roger talked about this, that has to be the default. We have to, on both sides of the table, listen to each other, meaningfully listen, not just hear it, but take away the message that then goes back into business plans on all industries, not just on mine, not just on Jan Roger's, but on everybody's. So meaningful consultation that then feeds into action and meaningful change that is beneficial for both sides of the table. I also think that to have people that have experienced the fishing industry embedded into the oil and gas energy industry, that have had boots on the ground, is important. So, for example, myself, I've had boots on the ground in terms of summer jobs in the offshore fishing industry and the aquaculture industry. I respect it. It's my culture as well. It's my family heritage. And I take that into the dialogues and the negotiations that I then have to go into the fishing industry with. Can we see that in the aquaculture industry? Can we see that in the fishing industry? People that have experienced my industry, how can we be a bit more cross-pollination so that it helps us understand the dialogues on the different sides of the table? The second tool, which I think is naturally happening, is that industries are starting to put more value on stakeholders as well as shareholders. And I think that shift in balance is a really healthy one. It's becoming a commercial advantage to make sure that we do things in the most sustainable, right, fair way. And I want to finish off, you know, I think we forget that we sometimes forget to see the other side of the story here. It is so clear from hearing the four of us today that we are all passionate about the sea space, and we are passionate about the sea and the ocean industry, and for making it a better place. And I think that is a wonderful starting point of mutual respect and care for the environment to build upon. So I think it has to be a two-way street. It has to be even a three-way street. But if Norway could get this right, imagine what kind of example it could be for the world in terms of multi-use and coexistence across an area of space, the ocean, which is going to be fundamental for the next 10 to 20 to 30 years' time. If Norway could get this right and be a flagship for the world in terms of ocean coexistence and collaboration, what a thing to write home about.
Well, that's a very nice way of ending. We can take global responsibility by doing things right here domestically. But I think we have time for one question. Please, Hogne.
Yes, we have got several questions from the participants online. What do the panelists think about ocean industry's cooperation or conflict with the indigenous people of the North?
Who feels that they would address this question about indigenous people? Doesn't seem like the panel is ready, so move onwards.
Okay, how are the panelists looking at the prospect of deep sea mining?
Yeah. So Hanna, you raised your hand on the first question, and the next one was about deep sea mining, and then we are short of time. So let's take the first question first. Hanna, please.
Yeah, I think this comes back to heritage and culture. I personally have no experience of dealing with indigenous people of the High North, but I have experience with dealing with, local people and indigenous people across Norway and the UK, and indeed the Baltic states as well. But the indigenous view comes with a history and a culture and tradition that needs to be respected and needs to be listened to, and needs to be, again, it comes back to meaningful consultation and ensuring that their voice isn't overlooked, because I think they come with a special weight that demands a very high level of respect from my industry and from all industries, to be honest. That's a fragile community and a fragile environment, and we should do our utmost to protect it for all our sakes, including theirs.
Thank you. And we have come to an end. I will thank all four of you. Warm thank from me and also the audience. Then I'll leave the floor to Andreas.
Thank you very much, Jan-Gunnar. What an important discussion to have. Following this, please also join today for the Alaska NUR breakout session at 4:30 Central European Time. We will discuss a similar topic and the potential for maritime transportation collaboration between Alaska and North Norway, today at 4:30 Central European Time.